right.
Sorry. I didn't get a chance.
Did you submit it after I sent the thing? I haven't been back in, so I will update. Don't you all worry. If you submitted it, I will go back in and I will update. I promise. No, I don't really do the turn it in except for on the senior paper. Then we do the turn it in. I consider myself a pretty good judge of there's no way this kid wrote this. All right, can everybody see my screen? Okay. What we're doing is we are using the single paragraph essay format. The single paragraph essay is really just a condensing of a regular synthesis essay. So what we do in a synthesis essay, and what has been sort of driven into your brains, I hope by this point, is that when you're analyzing and comparing two or more texts, you use a piece of textual evidence, a quotation, paraphrase, to each of those texts in a single body paragraph. Now, what we have here is a single paragraph essay. We condensed down the summer reading. We made it less for you. Nobody was going to say anything? You're going to let me go on like a fool? I don't need your help looking stupid. All right. You know what these kids did over here? I'm sitting here referencing the board behind me like it's there, like it's a weather map and I'm a weather girl. And it's not up there. They just let me hang out there, referencing an empty board. There it is.
Can you share your
Matt's
screen
messing
again?
with me. And this is recording too.
I know.
All right.
Wait, before you start again, I'm sorry. Can you share your screen again?
Yep.
Thank you. We love technology.
Everybody, you're on display for everybody. Everybody say hi.
Wait. No.
Yeah, only a couple of them were like, hi. Neither of us.
Alicia, stop texting.
I'm not texting. I'm playing with the highlighter.
All right. So here's your single paragraph essay format. Okay, it's the whole. We are going to synthesize. We're going to do it in the course of a single paragraph essay. It's condensed because we condensed the reading. We're trying to get to things a little bit more quickly to get you just back into the game. And we just want a baseline data for how you write, how you analyze, and the way that you're using info. Each of the boxes represents a sentence, right? Every sentence has a function to fulfill. By writing a sentence for each box, you will make sure that you have fulfilled the purpose of each sentence, okay? It's just a base. It's just a foundation. Then you layer on your thought, okay? The topic sentence acts as a proper thesis statement, right? Rather than just a topic sentence that would normally come after an introduction paragraph, it would normally come after the thesis statement. The topic sentence for this single paragraph essay is the thesis statement. Topic, stance, and plan. The topic is going to include the two texts that you're using. The stance is going to be what you are saying about the comparison between the two. The prompts that we give you will help to focus your stance. The prompts that we give you will help you to focus your stance. It will give you a lens through which to discuss the texts. And then your plan is going to be the 2 points that you're going to prove. The plan is going to give you a way to talk about the two texts. Okay? So one piece of plan for one piece of writing, the other plan for the other piece of writing. The two go together. How? You're going to figure that out by reading the prompt.
Wait, this isn't on our summer reading, like poems and stuff?
It is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Are we getting specific ones or the ones we already read? Like
the ones you already read. And now Maura is asking a good question. You can use exactly the ones that you discussed on your lit charts
Oh, yeah.
of your lit circles with your peers, or you can just use ones that you read that you maybe didn't discuss with your peers. The purpose of the lit circle was to get your mind going, to get your analytical juices flowing, and to give you a way to see how the connections and comparisons among the texts could be made.
You said that you are the ones that we read, 2, 3 of them, or just 2?
2. You'll be using 2 of your 3 texts, right? We don't want a third text because it makes it longer for us, and we want to get this back to you so that we have all an understanding of this is what you wrote, this is how we interpreted it, and this is what we'll work on, right? Or you're a perfect writer, just graduate now and go out into the world and be successful.
Question?
Yeah,
We're getting the prompt tomorrow, right?
correctamundo.
Cool.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Are we writing this in class tomorrow?
Tomorrow you will write in class. I will give you the entire class period. You will have this essay format. You will have a graphic organizer that looks exactly like this, but with the boxes you can write in. And you will have the entirety of class up until 11:59 p.m. tomorrow night. There's reasoning behind that. I want you to have plenty of time to write, but I also don't want you to feel like I'm going to keep writing this thing until 2 o'clock in the morning, because that's not the point. It should be a timed writing. You should be able to write it in the course of the period, but I want you to feel like you have a fail-safe. Does that make sense?
All right.
11:59 is more than enough time. If you're taking more time than that, then either you procrastinated and watched Criminal Minds too long, or you are overthinking it. Okay, so we go from the thesis statement. Now, your thesis statement really should be addressing the prompt. The way that you craft your thesis statement is really based around your answer to the prompt, which you'll get tomorrow. Your summary background, if you think of summary background, setup for textual evidence, and textual evidence, it all sort of looks like a big pizza pie shape. Your summary background being that back part of the pizza where the crust is, it's that big broad explanation, right? So the summary background gives us a context for the writing, the context for exactly where in the writing we're talking about. And it's almost like it has a little arrow that points down to the setup for textual evidence, right? The summary background is going to narrow us down to the setup for the textual evidence, which could literally be Salinger writes, comma, open quotation marks. And then your setup for your textual evidence literally goes right into exactly that textual evidence. I picture all of this framework, this format, like a construction site, right? It is literally just the building. It's like what they're doing over on Kinderknack. It's literally just a crane coming in. You pick up the textual evidence from one book or from one story or one poem, and you just drop it into your format. Easy peasy. Make sure you cite it properly. Your explanation is where your analysis comes in. Your explanation of your evidence is where you connect to the thesis. So we have summary background, the lime-colored box. It leads down to the setup for the textual evidence. The setup for textual evidence leads directly to the textual evidence. You go down to the textual evidence. Once you explain it, you analyze it, you tell me, why is this important? How is it impactful? How does it prove the thesis? So that explanation and analysis of evidence, it reaches its arm up and points right to the thesis. It points right to the thesis. Okay? So you're going to tell me how all of these things, you're going to tell me how all these things just led up to your explanation. If you find yourself explaining what the quotation says, like Salinger describes the color of the sky, and then you say, Salinger describes the color of the sky. No, that's you're paraphrasing. You're giving me plot summary. You're giving me something that doesn't matter. Tell me why it's important. Tell me how it's important. Tell me how it responds to the prompt. Tell me how it connects to the thesis statement. Okay? Questions so far? You go into your transition piece. You go into your transition statement. Your transition statement, it can be as simple as to compare, you'd say similarly, or to show that the two pieces are differing in the way that they're responding to the thesis. You could say in contrast, and to qualify, which means that there's pieces or ways in which the two are alike, but ways in which they're different. You could say, however, it could be said that, okay? It can be as simple as that with a transition. Or you can have a nice lengthy transition sentence that gives more background and info to the next text and really does a good job connecting. For the purpose of this assignment, either will work. Just get the basics and the foundation there. Get to your next analysis. Okay, so your next one, it's lather, rinse, repeat, guys. You're just going into your second text. So now you're going to give me that broad summary background info. What's the context in which I need to read this evidence you're going to show me? What do I need to know to understand that evidence? And then so-and-so says, or what's his name writes, right? The laughing man claims. Okay, and then your textual evidence. Boop, boop. You're dropping it in, right? Just dropping it right into where it belongs. And then your explanation of the evidence, it points right back up to that thesis statement. I like to say you should always be apt when you're writing analysis. You should always be apt, A-P-T. You should always be proving your thesis. Guys, that's good advice even for when you're just trying to have an argument with somebody and you're just trying to come to some sort of a conclusion between two people who don't see things the same way. If you stay focused on your points and don't get muddled in all of the ridiculous detail and off track and, oh, and by the way, I didn't like those shoes you had on that day, right? You stay focused on your thesis, you will be successful in proving any argument or any analysis. Always be proving your thesis. Mm-hmm.
The way you I guess write it out because
Oh, you don't, when you do the poem, so Marilyn's asking a good question. If you're using the poem, when you come to the end of the line, but it's like just a short line, you don't want to hit enter because you know you're supposed to format. At the end of a line, when you are quoting from a poem, you just put a slash and then you keep writing all on the same line, right? I think you probably have seen it before, but it's one of those things that like, oh, how do I do that again? You put a slash at the end of where the line is on the poem, the way that it's formatted on the poem. But for the purpose of your essay, that end line is marked with a slash. Okay, and then after we explain our evidence and we tie it back to our thesis statement because we're being apt, we go to our concluding sentence. A lot of the time I see this when we're finishing our paragraph, our body paragraph, we're like, oh, I explained that second piece of evidence, I'm done. No, the concluding sentence, it's like the glue that holds everything together. It's the Mod Podge that holds all the puzzle pieces in place so you can hang it on the wall. It shows how the big picture should be looked at. Okay? All right, I'm going to give you a single paragraph essay example. Everybody read on the Amtrak from Boston to New York City and The Absolutely True Diver Part-Time Indian in 10th grade, if you were here for 10th grade. An essay should be able to stand on its own, though. Even if you never read these texts, that broad summary background and the evidence and the explanation that goes back to the thesis statement should all be enough for us to understand the point about these two pieces of writing that this writer is trying to tell us. And it does. It should make sense, even if you never read these books or this poem. All right, topic sentence, thesis. Sherman Alexie's poem on the Amtrak from Boston to New York City and his novel, The Absolutely True Diver Part-Time Indian, helped to develop a deep understanding of how the Native American culture has been destroyed and oppressed by the white majority, yet the Native Americans were forced to depend on the same people for their own survival. Now we have the topic being, hey, that's a great place to introduce my two texts, right? And there they are, right? And then the stance. The stance is where you don't sit there and say, in my opinion, I think that. None of that. You just state it as fact. You state it as fact. And I know by virtue of your name being on the document that it's your opinion. But we state things powerfully so that we are taken more seriously. And it ups the level of sophistication. Okay, so that our plan is underlined. Our plan is, I'm going to prove these two things using these two texts. Two things I'm going to prove. Number one, culture has been destroyed and oppressed. Number two, Native Americans forced to depend. Those are the two things I'm going to keep in my mind. I know I have to prove in the course of this paragraph because that's what I said I would prove. Broad stroke summary background, giving us the pieces that we need to contextualize the evidence that we're going to read. On the Amtrak from Boston to New York City, Alexi's lunch symbolizes his people's dependency on the individuals who destroyed their culture and customs. As Alexi debates how he should reply to the elderly woman, he mentions his lunch, saying, now for this, I love the summary background. It's long enough, but it's not cumbersome. And then with this setup for textual evidence, it's great. She lets us know that he's debating this reply. It gives us a sense of what the relationship between him and the elderly woman is. He doesn't want to upset her. He feels conflicted. And that's great. But you also could have just said, Alexi says. That's fine. That too is a setup for textual evidence. Alexi says, comma, open quotation marks. Okay? And now here comes our textual evidence that we just plop in place. And here, Marilyn, here's the example of the end line slash rather. All I really did was eat my tasteless sandwich, drink my Diet Pepsi, and nod my head whenever the woman pointed out another little piece of her country's history. Properly cited, should say lines. The food that Alexi is eating is all products that are wholly American. It is a metaphor for how Native Americans had to choke down everything from betrayal to humiliation to poverty in order to survive. And with each helping, hoping to have a better fate than their ancestors who died at the hands of the government. This metaphor helps us to empathize with the Native Americans' experience of cultural obliteration, bite by bite. So now this is an analysis. It's not reiterating what the poem says. It's telling us why it's important. And it's showing us how it proves the thesis. If we go back up to the thesis statement literally says has been destroyed, right? What's a synonym for destroyed that we can find in here? Obliteration. Destroy, obliterate. They'll be on the same page in the thesaurus, right? Okay, now she goes into her transition, and it's nice because she reiterates the title of the piece she's going into. But note, you don't have to repeat Alexi's novel, The Absolutely True Diver, Part-Time Indian. You already went into that piece. You already went into the genre and author. You don't need to repeat that. Also extremely important in the assimilation and the treatment of Native American civilization is The Absolutely True Diver, Part-Time Indian, is Junior's exploration of the schooling opportunity at Reardon, an all-white high school known for its racist town, but excellent education. Now, this could have sufficed as, to be honest with you, as transition and background because it gives us a lot of context. It's some language doing double duty. It's giving us some adjectives to place the type of school that Reardon is, right? Kind of racist, but also like a really good school. And can those two things coexist? Yes, they can. Can there be a person who has a perhaps racist or perhaps biased background who can also be a good friend to someone like Junior? Yeah, absolutely. That's the dichotomy of the American culture, right? So she could have stopped here, but she goes into a little bit more of that. She likes to give us the character's mindset. You don't absolutely have to do that. Here she says, as Junior considers going to Reardon instead of continuing the school on the reservation as an escape to better opportunity, she could have just said, Junior says. She could have just gone with Junior says. And it's a hick town, I suppose, filled with farmers and rednecks and racist cops who stop every Indian that drives through. But Reardon was one of the best small schools in the state. Junior, who wants to have a better standard of learning, must depend on going to a white school in order to fulfill that desire of finding a way out of the impoverished state in which his people live because of hundreds of years under the thumb of white people in power. That's some strong language, right? Being under the thumb, and being under the thumb is definitely pointing to the second piece, being forced to depend, right? There's a fine line between being dependent on somebody and being under his or her thumb. Sometimes your authority figures at home or at school can be a good source to depend on, but when you feel like you don't have freedom in your home or in your school for whatever rules you don't agree with or whatever arguments you're not winning at the time, it can feel like you're under the thumb, right? So she pushes it a little bit further to make a more sophisticated and a more powerful, a stronger argument by using such language. So that's the how and why is it important. Now she's going to come to her conclusion. And this is where she does reiterate the title and genre of each piece. Sherman Alexie's poem on the Amtrak from Boston to New York City and his novel The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian offer a better understanding of the Native American experience as emphasized through the brutal irony of dependency a people must have on those who took everything away from them. Now, this piece down here, it does mirror and extend that topic/thesis statement. It goes from, well, that was my thesis statement and I proved it, and this is why it's important. Because it emphasizes this dependency. It offers us a better understanding of Native American people in America, right? So the extension, why is it important? To whom is it important? Well, maybe to anybody who wants to better understand the Native American experiences in America, right? And so that's where we tie it all together. Why do I care? To whom is this important? How is it important? How does it affect the world? How does it affect me? Okay, give us that conclusion. Also important are going to be your properly formatted citations, your MLA guidelines, and also this guy right here. Your last name, summer essay. I want you to save your document thusly. Last name, summer essay. When you click save as, I want it to be Shaw summer essay. I want it to be Meany summer essay. Menzel summer essay. Okay? And I want you to be Princess Sparkleface summer essay. But just you. Okay. There we go. So then here's what you'll see tomorrow along with your prompt. Again, the prompt is going to give you a lens through which to make your comparison. Now you've worked for a few days on how do we compare these texts that we've been looking at. So you already have some practice comparing these texts. Now you're going to do it with a specific focus. That specific focus should make it easier for you to compose your thesis statement and your supporting ICE statements. We will give you a couple of thesis statements to pick from. You can use them and plug in the titles of your works, or you can leave them alone and come up with your own thesis statement. But you will have this graphic organizer at your disposal tomorrow. You can write in the boxes and leave it in the boxes. You can write in the boxes and take it out of the boxes. You can write completely without the boxes, though that is not recommended. It just makes you more accountable to yourself and your writing to use the boxes at least as a structure and then pull them out. Do we have questions? Yes.
So this is just on like one text, right? Or
Two texts.
two?
Two texts. Because you're going to transition from one text to another. So you'll have either a poem and a short story or an article and a poem. You're going to have two separate texts in this one paragraph essay.
So are we limited to one? Sorry about that. Are we limited to one sentence per box, or is it
Well, you can, yeah, that's a good question. And you can limit it to one sentence per box. You can pretty much be like, well, I fulfilled everything because I know I put a sentence in each box and that's all I could do. But you can do more than one sentence. Not a lot more, but if you look here in this explanation, this has a few. You might need a couple of sentences, particularly because that's part of our writing. Beefing up our writing is varying our sentence structure. Maybe you have a one-word sentence that stands on its own and you're using for impact. And then you follow that up with a compound complex sentence because it's going to give the support to that one-word sentence. So yeah, don't limit yourself in terms of, oh, it can definitely only be one sentence.
Could you go up to the thesis part of it?
Yeah,
I just want to look at it real quick.
go ahead. And while you're doing that, Leah has a question.
Do you want to do like what the title and
Title is my last concern. Sometimes I know a title before I start writing the thing, and that's just what gets me to start. And then I pull the title away because I wrote something completely different.
You know how there's like two topics in the thesis?
Yeah.
Does there have to be two? Because like usually like thesis is like like this, and this, and you explain the three. But it's two, and it's
Two, because you're only using two pieces of writing. So I'm trying to make it very structured and very fundamental to make sure that we just get that synthesis in.
okay.
We just get that analysis. But you're right, it is only two. It is only two texts. And the topic should cover, when you're discussing topic, you should cover both of those texts in that thesis statement.
Like you're proving the part that's written in blue, and then yet Native Americans are focused on depending on the same people. Yeah. So there's two parts, I guess.
And the first part, the first thing that they proved was Native American culture has been destroyed and oppressed by the white majority. And then the second thing that they proved was Native Americans forced to depend on the same people for their survival.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was all happening in one paragraph using two texts.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
You'll do it on a Word. You can do it in a Google Doc and then submit a Word, or copy and paste into a create assignment. You can do that create assignment thing. Either way is fine, as long as it's MLA, as long as it's clean, nice, organized doc.
All set?
You're all set. Thank you guys so much. If you think of any questions, I've opened up Remind for you guys to make comments, and we'll respond there or to email.
All right, cool.
Have a great day.
Could I get the reminder?
Yes.
And for everybody?
Have a nice night.
And also, do I
Remind.
need like a
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
A note for what now?
notebook or anything?
People get notebooks.
Okay.
I
one
don't
from
require them.
Miss Nebraska, so.
I mean, it's just we're doing things so differently. I feel like we are taking pains to make it so that everything can be accessed and available online. So having the notebook would be really hard to assess for us. So, yeah. So